Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to WOR. Welcome back to PC Tier 2 and to the 5th round of the PC Tier 2 Championship. Another new / friendly face joins us in the commentary box tonight. It's none other than Nathan Richards. You know him, I say the semi-sim racing loyalty that he is, the royalty of the paddock. How you doing, mate?
I am doing very well, thank you, Slappy. Great to be back here alongside yourself. It feels like a while since me and you have been in the commentary box together, so I can't wait to get into the action tonight, of course. We have got the track, but I'm going to let you do the grand reveal. But yeah, can't wait. Should be an exciting one. Very close championship with a dominant force between Rapasa and Lund, so can't wait to see what those two can cook up tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I mean, a reminder for everyone that this is the mystery season. We've had 4 rounds, complete wildcards all the way through. But we just got the info here in the commentary box. Same time as the drivers. We don't get any sneak peeks, folks. And round 5 is taking us to none other than the heart of Austin, Texas. It's going to be Circuit of the Americas. It's 5.5 kilometers, 20 turns, and an absolute thrill ride of a circuit. You're looking at turn 12 for your hotspots, turn 1 for a little bit of uphill action. What do you make of this circuit, Nathan?
I mean, I think it might be the most underrated circuit on the calendar, both in esports and IRL. I think it's a brilliant circuit. I love it. It flows so well. You got a mix between high and low speed corners, and of course you've got that really tricky final sector, which can surprisingly turn into some, it can make some good battles. So yeah, I think it's a really good track, and it'd be nice if it was used more, because I think it's for some reason so hated. I don't know why. But yeah, I think it's a really nice track, and by far the best one in the Americas.
Yeah, I think it's one of like the underrated gems of any season. Yeah. You look to the first complex, that is the first sector. Turns 2 all the way through to 10. It's a through wide. You have to nail it absolutely perfectly. Power out as best as you can in turn 11. Get a lot of overtakes, more than you would think, heading into turn 12, just after the speed trap. And then it's a snaking final sector, which sees a lot of drivers battle back and forth to try and retain or defend their positions. Looking at the standings, though, quickly, before we go trackside, Rapasa was on the 33-point lead heading into round 4. Now he comes out of it in a little bit of a difficult state, finishing outside of the points, and in fact not finishing at all. He got a DNF, which means that his next closest competitor, Leo Lund, had the chance to get his second win and get himself within 8 points, aka striking distance of that championship lead. Things have all of a sudden heated up at the top, as well as a battle for third.
Yeah, indeed. You can see, of course, top A leads their little battle on 33 points, and we have Keaton in 4th on 29, Keanu Latour on 27 in P5, JSD only a point back on 26, and then 2 points back to Leroy Brown, and then another 2 points back to Diego Zorzo and Larry Torquay, and then 4 points back on 18 points. Renz Thomason rounds out that top 10. I mean, I think everybody knows how good this grid is. That top 10 there is very strong, but it just shows how even better and how dominant that Rapasa and Lund are, considering they're 30-odd points ahead of everybody else, at least. They are doing a superb job so far this season, and I think at the start, you was definitely looking at a mix of 3 or 4 names, but I think now unless, both of these two just decide not to attend the next 3 or 4 races, I don't think there's any chance anybody else can get close to them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough act to follow. I really do think that for some of these drivers at the top, they're establishing their foothold early in the season. They're really pushing some of that early advantage. But saying that, it wasn't easily done. Lund, remember, was under a 10th of a second away from Larry Torquay as he finished across the line over in Canada. And then, Caden Lute a couple of seconds behind, with Gabor Zontos getting a few points under his belt. JST in 5th. Van Ruyten along with Liam Stevens, and then Leroy Brown, Riyad Sprogus, and Diego Zorzo to finish, which is particularly in that top 5 is a very close spread in terms of finish timings. But we are about to go trackside, ladies and gentlemen. We have got cars now making their way through the course, getting ready to go for their bona fide runs. And let's see what the racers have in store for us tonight.
Indeed, and the first car out on track will be Luca Rapasa, of course, our championship leader, ahead of Leo Lund, so we'll see what he can do in terms of opening up the leaderboard and, well, hopefully for him, putting himself on a provisional pole position spot. But everybody, as normal, gone out very early in this session to try and get as many runs in as possible in this qualifying, of course. 16 minutes to go here of our 18-minute session as Luca Rapace just heads through the penultimate corner, then into the final corner, turn 20. Of course, to head back down to turn 1 to begin his first lap. Of course, wanting to spot that braking zone. You can't really spot the apex. It's very blind heading up into this braking zone, so you just kind of got to guess and trust your natural instinct of where that apex lies. And then, of course, getting straight back on the power, out of turn 1, through the long curve at turn 2, and then into the snaky S's section here, turns 3, all the way through towards turn 10 at the end of sector 1. And you can just see here, Sappy, how much throttle that the drivers can apply, and it just shows how much they need to, care about that minimum speed and just carry as much possible through that section.
I mean, look as well how they're using the gearing to their advantage. They're using the car's gearing to keep it in that optimal range and keep it stable. I think that's the most important thing. You go too lower gear and you can snap the rear out or over rev the engine. You go too lower gear, you're not really getting that power out of the corner. And even if these aren't necessarily torquey engines, they're much more tuned to the horsepower end of the spectrum. You still need to find that sweet spot to really ride the power band without getting too much of a kick and breaking your rear tires when they are loaded. But looking nice and clean for Rapace here. Couple of apexes he does go a little bit wide on. However, he's keeping it nice and clean all the way through till the end. Final sector now, final couple of corners. It's the penultimate one here. We do sometimes send drivers a little bit out wide. They take it a bit too hot, but Rapace has kept it together for the RB, and it's a 29.9 initial runs. Is they going to be able to match it? Sprogus going to be 0.2 or 0.02 of a millisecond behind. Diogo Zorzo's got a 30.2 as well. Many more cars now making their way as we speak. Lots of invalidations, though. I imagine that would have been either in Sector 1 or just coming out of the last few corners, as you have Jean Marquard with a 0.163. Only 2 cars are making it into the 29 so far.
Yeah, and they're, at least, nearly 0.2 ahead of Joel in third. So a great job by Rehards and Luca at the top, as we did see there. Larry Torquay jumping up into P7. Liam Stevens up into the top 10 there with a 0.613. And I'm just on board here with Gabor Chantos heading through into the final corner now. What can we see him do as he heads his way through the final corner up to the line, goes into third with a 130.108 as Leo Lund there pops up into P6 with a 130.300, and that's a bit of a surprise, isn't it? Luca Rapace and Leo Lund separated by nearly 0.4, and those two are normally right at the top of qualifying.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We're going to have to see how that plays out. I think it's still early days. I think we are going to see them converge much more closely together as the session progresses. But 16 out of 20 drivers getting a time on their first run. The 2 Williams, one of the Kick Saubers, and Exavox in the Haas going to be the 4 drivers that don't quite get a time on the boards. I think for the Williams case, they just took it a little bit too hot. They flew a bit too close to the sun, although Justin Ertz in the Kick Sauber is going to be going out a bit later than the competition.
Yeah, taking a bit of a different sequence here in his qualifying, just over 12 minutes ago, sorry, in this session, and Justin Ertz going out at the moment, of course. Many FVR drivers in the field, and he's the only one out of all of those drivers to try something a bit different there. So we'll see what the plan is here for Justin. I mean, it's not the first time that I've commentated him and he's tried something a bit different, so I wouldn't say I'm that surprised that Justin is trying this different strategy, but of course we'll see if it can work out for him well as he just heads his way down towards turn number 11 at the braking zone, and of course going to set his way up for the next run. Of course, this final set's, like we said earlier, very difficult, and in a qualifying session you can gain and lose so much here in just this section because it requires so much precision and just being able to get the throttle down as early as possible. But it's that easy in that section just to lose a rear or, put your throttle down too early. You've got to get it perfect, and that's what I think makes and breaks drivers' laps around this track. Those corners from turn 11 to turn 19.
Yeah, it really is a make or break situation. And when it comes to balancing the car through that final sector, I think it's paramount that you don't get too excited. Because that last sector, it's very easy to push the car a bit too hard. The corners do tighten up almost in a deceptive way. I look particularly at turns 14 and 15. You almost have a double apex as a means to trick you. So you can't get too hungry on the throttle. You will wash out wide, wider than you think than you would be going. But we'll see how these drivers perform. Justin Ertz, a little bit pointy on his car. You can see that he's slipping the rear a couple of times, but that pointiness has helped him out quite a lot through Sector 1. Personal Purple looking nice and quick for the Kick Sauber, just a 10th.5 off of the fastest sector time, which I do believe belongs to Gabor Zontos in the Alpine. Now heading down to Sector 2, into turn 12, jumping quickly on the brakes and nicely carried through. Unfortunately, the game sound having a little bit of a hiccup there, but heading our way through into Sector 3, and again, very nicely balanced. Losing quite a bit of time in that second sector, but they're still on track to get a midfield run. So about P10, P11 if they absolutely nail Sector 3. Let's see what they do. Comes up to the line. Justin, turn 19, now 20. Sweeping it through the apex. Is it going to be enough? It is going to be enough, but not for any time to break the boards. It's going to be, unfortunately, just a P17. So losing time in sectors 2 and 3 in particular, that did cost him dearly.
It certainly did, yeah. Nearly a second off, and it's not often we see drivers a second off on a lap time around in WR Tier 2. Normally you're looking at a max of 6 or 7 tenths. So certainly just not getting into not getting into the rhythm of it at the start of this session here is Justin. But I'm on board here with Diego Zorzo in the Aston Martin, currently a 10th up in that first sector, so looking very strong at the moment. Of course, everybody else also on a lap apart from Justin, so we will see some big improvements and probably a big change here in the times as we just head our way through out of turn 10. Of course, it's DRS zone down towards turn 11 here for Diego Zorzo in the Aston Martin. We'll see what he can do now as he heads his way in towards this next section. Of course, ending this middle sector. We'll see how much he's found in Sector 2 as he heads his way through now, and he's going to be up by just over a tenth. So he has gained some time, but certainly can have gained a lot more in that second sector as he now heads his way through turn 13, 14 and 15. Back on the power again for what F1 describes or labels as a triple right-hander, and then into our final two corners, turn 19 and turn 20. Two very difficult corners there. You can just see a bit of a wobble there from Diego, but as he heads his way out of the final corner now, up towards the line, Luca Rapassa bails into the bits, and Diego jumps up into third there with a 1:30.100.
I like to think of the triple right-hander as someone trying to draw a freehand circle and sort of giving up halfway. Just not quite having the accuracy to get it fully smooth, but enough to generate 3 apexes for our drivers to make their way round. Now, got a few more drivers. Gabor Zontos is on track for a decent improvement, 10th.5 off on the boards. So we can see Rapassa and Sprogis have headed in. Zorzo has just been displaced by Caden Lute, now getting a time on the board, and a solid one at that. But can Gabor take that down? Yes, he can. It's a 0.746, 2 tenths of a second to the millisecond ahead of Luca Rapassa. Larry Tulke up to the line, 4th and 5th drivers are going to be making it to the 129s alongside Tope in the second Williams. Just Exafox left to set a time on this board. Starting a lap now. Many more drivers now making their way through and really pushing those timing boards much further into the low 30s and the high 29s.
They certainly are, as we do see there. Rens Thomason in the Alpine, the teammate of Gabor, jumping up into third there with a 1:29.951. A very nice lap there from Rens Thomason. Of course, just watching Exafox here in the Haas, looking to try and get his first lap time of the session, and he's found the track limit violations and unfortunately won't be setting the lap this time around, as we did see as well Tope jumping up into P6 there ahead of his teammate Caden Lutz, who sits in P7. So very nice by the two Williams drivers, and we did see as well Balint Elekesh finding an improvement and jumping up to P10 there, just 1,000th ahead of his teammate Leroy Brown, who has had a very good performance this season so far, considering we don't see that often in league racing. Leroy Brown is doing a very nice job indeed of keeping himself up to grips with this Tier 2 grid, as we did see as well Larry Tulkey jumping up into P4, who's also been having a nice season so far. Of course, finished P2, nearly less than a tenth behind the back of Leo Lund in Canada, and he sits in P4 now. Would you say possibly, Sappy, that he's one of those that is kind of, what's the word? He's always there, but not quite at that, top level like Luca and Leo. But he's always in around that P3 to P7, P8 area.
I don't know. I kind of put it a step further because we've seen the pace that he's capable of. And if the start-finish line was even 10 meters further ahead than it was back in Canada, we would have seen Tulkey take a race win, in all honesty. So I do think that he's certainly got the punching power to be up there with the best of them. I think it's just where the highlights have been on such dominant performances like Rapasa, he's kind of snuck under the radar a little bit. It's a little bit of a black sheep of that top contending group. So whether that's consistency or just in other weekends not quite showing the same amount of pace, I do think he has it. I really do.
Well, I think he certainly does as well. Of course, joining FVR as well a few months ago, and I think at the start of last game was nowhere near the Tier 2 grid, so doing a great job so far. Here he's Larry talking. I believe as well he does some sort of IRL racing. I think he does some like rally type thing in a Toyota Yaris or whatever it is. I remember seeing it on TikTok a while back. Of course, if I'm wrong, please correct me in the chat, guys. But we have got, of course, more cars now on a lap. We have Rihard Sproggis, who, of course, is in second place after the first runs, of course, bailed into the pits earlier on, and he's looking to set his second lap of the session, but his third set of tyres here. He's a little bit down in that middle sector, though, on his previous best. So he will be hoping that he can find a lot here in Sector 3 as he just heads his way through turn 15, back on the power in towards 16, 17 and 18. And then, of course, our final two corners to go here. For the Red Bull driver here, of course, part of the RHG team, as he nearly ends up throwing the car into the barriers, has a big snap of the rear as Luca Rapasa goes quickest with a 129.66 to a very nice lap there by Luca Rapasa, of course, who leads our championship. And him and Leo Lund are separated now by 11 positions as Leo Lund jumps up into P3, but he's still a couple tenths off the lap time of Luca Rapasa. Many more cars coming through here to finish their laps. Joel Marquardt jumps up into P3 there with the 129.782. And then the next one to cross on, I think, might be Zalan Bida.
Yes, they lost few cars of this set of runs, at the very least, making their way through. Now, Bieda is going to be coming through to 14th position, 30.2 on the clocks on the books. Now, last few runs making their way through of this segment, and then it will be the final the final phase of the drivers really pushing 110%. I think Caden Lute's on a bit of a run here, so let's see how he can manage it. Let's see how he can keep things going. Heading down Sector 2, you can see he's dipping as much as he can to the right side, really playing a bit of chicken with those track limits all the way to the white line. I'd be a little bit nervous if I was him, considering that this could potentially be one of the last runs that I might have. Still, Sector 2, looking purple, looking good, and sweeping his way through the sneaky double apex on the left before the triple right-hander to finish the lap off after two more left corners. Tope rejoins the session after a quick hiccup. Hopefully he'll get a chance to get that final lap in before the checkered flag falls as Caden Lute makes his way up to the line and powering out quick as he can. It's a 29.8, so he's going to be joining the 29 club and on the second row, no less.
Indeed, very nice there by Keaton Lutz. We do see here FedEx, of course, that being Ryan Grob, unfortunately has had, I think, must have made a mistake somewhere because he did lift off somewhere in the middle of the lap. He was on a decent run in that first sector. Joel Marquardt doesn't think he can do any more. Neither does Ryan Grob, and neither does Luca Rapasa. They're all bailing out of this qualifying session with only a couple of minutes to go. Laps can still get underway. Of course, many cars now on an out lap, and of course the one who's looking likely to dethrone that pole position is Gabor Chontos, who's doing a very good job so far, just over a tenth away from that pole position in the Alpine car. Of course, recently moving over from Xbox, I think was quite a multi-time winner over in in Xbox, here in WOR. So, of course, moving to PC and also doing a very good job in showing that he has got that pace. And I think sometimes that's something that drivers on this grid don't do. They don't show the ultimate pace, but Gabble's one of those. He came in new this season and proves that he's got a right to be here in Tier 2.
Well, pace transcends platform, I like to think, and he's earned his stripes over on console, so I'm not surprised that he's able to come into the PC tiers and immediately show that strength in the same way. If anything, more enabled by the PC platform and the power it has. So Zontos is certainly a favourite to look out for as we head into the final phase of the quali session. About 40 seconds remain on the clock, which means that everyone needs to make their way through and do it fast. There's Zontos dragging the brakes a little bit, getting those carbon ceramics up to ideal temp as more drivers retire. That's Caden Luke. I'd say that is Zontos in a field of his own. It's his for the taking potentially as we now start the final lap of his qualifying endeavours. Now making his way through the first corner.
Indeed, I've actually gone onto the Mercedes of Bally Telecash. He's just heading down in towards turn 11 at the moment. Of course, sits in P11 right now on a 30.248, so definitely has a lot to give in this lap. He's got at least half a second here off the Luca Rapassa. So let's see what he can do as he heads through turn 15 now, and of course straight back onto the throttle through our final few corners on this circuit. And of course a very treacherous turn 19. Try not to hit that inside curve too much, and then of course back on the power in towards turn 20. Get on the brakes nice and late, get the car turned in, try not to lose the rear on the exit, go very wide as you head to the line and manages P10. A big improvement, but only stays in 10th, and that just shows how spread out this grid is. He found 2.5 tenths there, Sappy, and only improved by 1 position.
Yeah, so quite a grid spread that we're seeing in this session in particular. Let's see if the Mercedes teammate, unfortunately with a validation, no improvement to be made there. So we've got Rens Thomason coming through now. Last few drivers making their way. Gottschalk into P10 and, or say P9. Yeah, now P10 as JST is going to displace him and match the time of his teammate to the millisecond. Insane stuff. But here comes Gabor and he's going to do it. Final sector, absolutely firing it through. 6.26. And what a run as well by Riyad Sprogis to displace Rapassa from what seemed like untouchable to now the second row alongside Joel Marquardt. Great final runnings.
Indeed, and Gabor Chontos on pole position here. A brilliant lap time, but of course, Riyad Sprogis only a couple of thousandths back there in P2 with a 129.654, but of course it is going to be Gabor on pole, Rihard in second, and then Luca Rapassa, our championship leader, reigning at the top 3. Then we have Tope on the second row in P4, followed by the 2 Germans over at TF10 of Joel Marquardt and JSD in P5 and P6, and then we have Keedan Lutz in 7th, Leo Lund second in the championship in 8th, Rens Thomason in 9th, and Diego Zorzo in 10th. And then we have Larry Tolkien, Daniel Gottschalk, Ban Telekash, Keanu Latour, Leroy Brown, Ryan Grubbers, Alan Beda, Justin Ertz, Exafox and Liam Stevens, our full 20 on the grid. And I've got to say, Sappy, that's the ending to qualifying screen and reading through the names gets even harder every week. I don't know why. It just feels like it gets a lot. There's so much more names to read through.
Well, you just got to get faster and faster. So, I see. I'm with Exafox, unfortunately being unable to set time. He did have a couple of attempts, didn't quite make it through. That is going to mean that he's not going to be getting any real times on this session, and he's going to be starting from the back of the grid. We're going to take a quick moment to get our drivers ready and get them into a new lobby with collisions turned back on and everything ready for the race. So stick with us after a quick word from our good friends over at Grid Finder and Next Level Racing. All right, and welcome back, folks. Of course, thank you to Gridfinder, Next Level Racing, being able to do what we do. Can't be done without the help of a few friends. But we jump back to the standing screen to a familiar sight, and as a reminder of the battle that awaits. So we are getting into the lobby right now, and we are getting ourselves set up to go racing here in Texas for a 28-lap spectacular. But there's a lot of pressure towards the front end of things. So we've had a pretty exciting qualifying. We do have Sprogis really putting some pressure on and starting to show his pace, show his talents. Just hope that converts into race trim. And as well as that, you have got Rapasa currently being displaced to the second row. So he's going to have a little bit of work to do, especially with Lund flying so close in 8th place. He did dominate out in Canada, but so he's still, even when it's not his home turf, even when it's not his specialty, he's still a formidable force.
Yes, certainly is indeed. I can't wait to see how this Grand Prix gets underway. We've got, a bit of a mix-up at the front, of course. Gabor on that pole position spot. Richard Sprogis starting in P2. Two drivers we know that have got the pace, but are never normally starting first and second. So very exciting to see how this race can go. Of course, I was speaking to Richard earlier on, and he was saying that he's going to see me after the race in the commentary box. Then he laughed. So he didn't seem to have much confidence there about getting a podium. But starting second place, surely that does make it a bit more of a reality for him, as we are just getting everybody back into our lobby to get underway for the Texas Grand Prix. And is there any early predictions, Safi, that you want to lock in, or is it a bit too early, do you think?
I honestly think it's a bit too early to call, because I don't like to hedge my bets knowing what these races can be like. I know that if it's not the drivers throwing some kind of wild card in there, then it's the conditions that could wildly change. We had a very dry and almost perfect condition qualifying. 40-degree track, clear skies, bright, no winds to be spoken of. But the race could very well be markedly different, and especially if we do get a change up in terms of the track temps, that's going to affect drivers more than you'd think.
Oh yeah, certainly. Especially if there's big mix-ups in the weather. Of course, we have got dynamic on, so of course it can rain, and that does cause issues, especially around the track, which is difficult in the dry. Never mind when it comes into that wet weather. So if that does happen, the drivers have got a right task ahead of them. And then if it comes to mixed conditions where we have dry and wet or wet to dry, it makes it even harder. And at that point, it's pretty much like a lottery of who's going to be in those top spots. But of course, we have got nearly everybody into our session. Before we can get our way into the race, of course, Leo Lund is going to be starting this race in P8. He's 8 points back from Luca Rapaz. So for him, his main aim is just getting back towards the front, isn't it? Getting onto those podium spots, because those two, they're that, tight at the front. They can't afford to be missing out on podiums, can they? They've got to be on the podium pretty much every round.
Yeah, we'll say consistency is the key here. And then when you look to the top in particular, there's so much in terms of points being traded around round to round. I mean, Rapasa's got wins in rounds 1 and 3. Lund's got wins in rounds 2 and 4. Rapasa's got a third podium with a second place in round 2 in Baku. You've got second and third coming from top A in his 2 finishes, and that's what's given him the third place. You can have those big standout finishes, but as we get further into the season, it's going to transition more into who can keep bringing in those wins and those results week in, week out. So that is where there's going to be a big differentiator. Early days, you can afford a lot of volatility, but now it really is time to lock in.
Yep, it certainly is, of course. Just waiting for our last couple of drivers to get their way in, and then we'll head into the race. Of course, normally we'd be sitting here and looking through the calendar, but we haven't actually got one, have we, for this season? If anyone is new here in the chat, this is a history season, pretty much. A couple of minutes before the race, before the qualifying begins, just before 8 o'clock UK time, the drivers will be given their track for the evening. Of course, we have got our track pool on the right with 16 different tracks, of course, for our 10 rounds this season. We are here for round 5, so at the halfway point of the season. And what tracks have we used so far, Sappy? It's Monaco. Is it Monaco, Baku? And then I'm lost.
Yep, we had, so round 1 we had Monaco, round 2 we had Azerbaijan, Then you had Mexico, followed by Canada, and now Texas. So that eliminates a few from the pool. There's still a few ups and downs in the remaining roster. Like, as much as I do want to see China, I do love Shanghai. I think it's one of those more interesting tracks that doesn't really get the screen time. We do, in the same breath, have a bit of a Spain, which, as accomplished of a track as it is, it's not for me. It's not my favorite bag, just because it is, in the same way when you look to the real-life counterpart and you look to F1 testing, how they used to run so many laps, hundreds if not thousands of laps around Catalonia. It's the perfect balance of low, medium, high-speed corners, which makes it finally dialed into a T for so many cars and doesn't quite make it exciting in the same way. You've got still a decent mix here.
Yeah, we certainly have, as we just wait for our fond driver to get in, and we have got all 20 in, so we will be heading our way in very shortly for this race. I mean, very interesting one coming up, of course. If you didn't join in quali, we have Gabor Chantos on pole and Richard Sprogis starting in second place. And then, of course, our championship leader in third, and then our championship runner-up starting in P8. So big mixes here in the field. Lots of battling will get underway in this race. And once our grid is sorted out, we'll be heading our way into the session, and we can see who's going to be taking that victory tonight.
Let's see, indeed, who takes that victory. I mean, you hedging any bets? I know I said that I was kind of abstaining, but anyone that you want to put a finger on as someone to watch?
To be fair, I'm actually going to go with Gabor. I think he's shown brilliant pace, didn't he, in his qualifying laps. I feel like he's going to be one of those that can translate it to good race pace.
Oh, interesting. I like it. I like it. I'm tempted to agree. I'm very tempted to agree, but it's just tough because we, at the same time as I want to say Gabor, we also have Sprogis and Rapasa still within the same 10th in the qualifying, and in fact within less than half a tenth. So it really can be put up to one of those three. And I know the one lap pace is very different to race pace, but the main thing is that any one of those three, I think, have it in contention. I think I'm gonna lend it a little bit to Sprogis here, just because he did sort of show, even with a little bit of a hiccup in the first sector, he did show some really high pace that can potentially challenge on the likes of Rapasa. And I think he's built his car a bit more for overtaking. I think he's gone a little bit for a more top speed build. And I think that's going to serve him well.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to be an interesting one because this grid, you watch all the drivers, and so many of them here have all their little, their little niche advantages over each other, and it does make it interesting because that's where you get to see in the race where things unfold. You see people that start to near the back work their way through, and then you see people at the front also who drop back, and you're thinking, well, how would they drop back 10 positions over a race? And then you look into it, and you just notice the little things that everyone does differently really does change the races quite a lot.
Oh, mechanically, the platforms, in terms of the tunes at this level, they're pretty much the same. Everyone's pretty much got the same in terms of differentials, in terms of spring rates, in terms of ride heights. There's not really much variation, so where you're really going to get the variation is how aggressive they're running the wings. Of course, less aggression does mean that you get a bit higher on the straights, but you can potentially lose out in terms of making up your own time in the first and third sectors. But you, inversely, can go a bit too much on the wings, make yourself an easy target for overtakes, and even if you make up the time in the first and third sectors with the twistier bits, you're gonna struggle to get around other cars. So it's a trade-off. It's a balance, as always. Do you go for optimal pace, but potentially struggle on the overtakes, or do you go for a bit more of a higher speed, like higher speed cap, wing config, and then go from there? It's tough to call.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in the past, the setups have been very similar between all the drivers, but I've noticed that, a few drivers that I speak to at this level, they actually surprisingly have quite different setups, and you look at it and you think, well, why do you do this, this, and this, and they'll give you an explanation. And then you'll speak to someone else and they'll say, well, no, because if I do that, then I end up having this happen to me or whatever. So, surprisingly, the setups do actually matter a lot in this game, and when I say they matter a lot, I mean they matter a lot personally to the driver. Before, you'd put a good setup on F1 22 or 21 you drive, but now, a good setup you know, there's so many different variations of a good setup. You've got to find what's good for you, and I think that's what has kind of brought some people further to the front this game. The ones that have mastered getting those setups.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'm glad you brought it up about driving styles. It is going to be a big thing about how you set up your car. I mean, for every driver we've seen who likes to smooth steer, we do tend to see some who really like to throw in the car, give it max angle, and then gradually peel it out until the car's scrubbed and you've got that surface tire temp. It's interesting to see the two styles play into each other in different ways, but also it's interesting to see how the cars have been set up in response to the drivers. You can sort of meddle with particularly the front end. I see a lot of drivers tinkering with the front end because your turn-in is such an important part of the corner that you have to get it absolutely right for the way you drive.
Yeah, certainly, and I think, yeah, it's one of those games that I think it's, you know, a little bit less realistic to the ones we've had in the past, and it does make it a bit silly in terms of the meta of driving. I mean, I've seen it in esports and even here as well, the way they have to yank the wheel left and right. It's like, would that happen in real life? No, I mean, it's even more extreme than Fernando Alonso's type of steering, and, you know, he does like to just pretty much full lock it. On this game, you have to do kind of a double flick, so you'll flick it in once and then you have to flick it hard again, and that's what some drivers can master, like Luca Rapazza, for example. And then others can't get used to it at all because it's not like driving a car.
Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? So you do also see some drivers who either benefit from having real-world wheel experience or actually find it a bit of a detraction compared to the in-game, because you might learn certain things that you then have to unlearn in this different scenario, or the inverse, to say the things that you learn will actually come to benefit you, like how to gradually apply steering in conjunction with a throttle. Because remember, tires don't just have a forward and a sideways dimension when it comes to grip. It's shared. It's like a circle. So what you lose in accelerating or braking force, you gain in lateral grip. You've got to balance that tightrope very finely. And I think real-world experience can sometimes help with that on the core principle level. But we are just going trackside now. We're about to get racing 28 laps here at Texas and a great qualifying under our belts. 5 red lights. The track is hot here for round 5 of the mystery season in WOR, and immediately it's going to be a quick getaway for the field. It's looking fast, it's looking frenetic, it's 3-4 wide as everyone's jump into quick position. Here goes Sprogis into the apex of the first corner, immediately chasing down on Gabor, trying to get that early advantage while the irons are hot. Going side by side all the way. There's going to be Rapazza and Top A doing much of the same. The two McLarens filing into single file behind one another, not wanting much of a squabble, but here comes Rapazza and the Top 8. They continue to fight all the way through. It's a switchback through the first sector. Rapazza's committed to getting this move done. Doesn't want to use the battery though. Wants Top 8 to egg him on and to get the apex into turn 11 cleanly done. And the McLarens are even going to take a slice of the pie as well. That's going to be Top 8 getting displaced by one of the McLarens and going to get challenged. No DRS just yet, but the fight is already on. However, all of this combat has resulted in Rapazza already being 0.8 of a second behind.
It certainly has, and there are lots of moves happening behind there. Leo Lund trying to jump up into P7, but gets displaced there by JSD as they head their way through in towards turns number 13, then of course into 14 and 15 there, as Top 8 does have to fend off from Joel Marquardt, who's trying to get past the Williams but can't quite do so. Of course, Luca Rapazza has brought that gap down at the front now just to 6.5 to 0.7 of a second, as we did see there. Balin Delakash going for something completely different, hard tyres, and I thought that holds a band here.
Yes, they are. Funny you say that, Nathan. They are, in fact, banned. And there you go. There is Balance now heading into the pits to quickly rectify the mistake. For those who don't know, exclusive to this season, we do have a hard tyre ban. That means if you do have the hard tyres on at any point in your race, you have to change off them immediately, or you accumulate penalties on a per lap basis in the multiples of seconds. So you do need to get off those things, and fast. It's only softs and mediums here, and of course the wet weather tyres, but I don't think we're going to be seeing any of that here in Texas, as it looks to be a solid 27 degrees for the entire race duration.
Yes, it is a very sunny day here in Texas, as we do see a move there by Leo Lund looking to go ahead of Joel Marquardt, but can't quite do so. Sits back in P7 at the moment. But of course has got JST on his rear, who will also be looking to make moves. Further ahead we do see there Top 8 trying to go around the outside of Luca Rapassa to take third away from the Racing Bulls car, but can't do so either, as we do see Rens Thomason making a move ahead of Diego Zorzo, jumping up into P9 ahead of the Aston Martin, who's going to have to fend off from Larry Tulke. Is further behind. Our battle at the back. We've got a right little squabble here between Liam Stevens and Co as we head our way through and towards turn number 14 now. Liam Stevens gets ahead of FedEx or Ryan Grob, and then Zalan Bida just keeping ahead of Justin Etz and Exafox, who sits right at the back. And I've got to say, this is a surprise for Exafox because I've commentated over him there for at least a year and a half, and I've never seen him this far down the field and not being able to make moves. So a very big surprise, and maybe one of those drivers that doesn't benefit off just hopping on and getting some laps in, or maybe he hasn't driven around here that often.
I was going to say, do you think it's a bit of a confidence thing? So, I mean, look at his race weekend so far. He hasn't got a time on the boards. He's down in P20. He's fought and got a little bit of wheel-to-wheel action, but he hasn't really made much forward momentum. I'm wondering, does he maybe not feel that confidence in the car? But it's all kicking off in the middle sector here, as there is going to be local yellows. There is going to be Marquardt now down at the bottom of the order in P19. Front wing end plate missing, and Pride certainly damaged as he's now displaced to the back of the field.
It was a bit of a squabble between Joe Marquardt and the field. Rens Thomason went for a move and got shuffled off track. Yeah, Gazorzo got the same treatment by Marquardt, and then, of course, Marquardt came into contact with, I think it might have been Keanu Latour, and dropped down the field, as we do see Keanu looking to make a move ahead of there of Daniel Gottschalk in the Sabre. Daniel says no thank you, as Rens Thomason gets a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. And you can see there Gottschalk not able to get that move off and stays in P12 for the time being. Further ahead, of course, Luca Rapassa, our championship leader, 3 positions ahead of second place Leo Lund. I'm sure Leo will be looking to make moves, as we do have people in the pits already. Of course, that is early, isn't it? Are they going medium here?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, the mediums, as we've seen from previous rounds, have a bit more longevity than we always give them credit for. They do get a bit of pace drop off, but you really want to be on softs for as little as you can, barring the quick shot stints like we're seeing at the very start to get that early advantage pressed. You want to be on the mediums for as long as you can during a race distance, and we're seeing that with the 6 drivers that have now headed in onto the medium compounds respectively. Sprogis, JST, Leteau, Brown and Marquardt all jumping in. Of course, Marquardt had to replace that front wing anyway, but it is decently lucky that it also aligned with his strategy. So the top end drivers, they're going to be thinking about how they can handle this. Rens Thomason has also got a 3-second time penalty that he's having to contend with, as there's been multiple warnings for track limits this early in the race. Is a bit concerning. Gabor's being displaced down to P3. I wonder if he's playing the long game a little bit here, as Top 8 is going to be chopping and changing. And Top 8 did pump a lot of energy and a lot of battery into that move, so wondering what the strategy is from the 3 of them up top.
Well, we've got to see. I presume they'll be looking to pit very shortly here in this Grand Prix. Of course, Luca Rapassa now leads the way. Does he choose to pit here in the RBs? He heads through the penultimate corner, heads for the pit lane. So does Tope, so does Gabble, so does Leo, Diego, Larry, Rens, Daniel, Zalan stays out. So does FedEx, so does Justin, so does Leo Lund and, Liam Stevens and Exafox. We head our way now onto lap 5 of 28. Let's see, where does Reinhard Sprogis come out compared to Luca Rapassa here?
Yeah, that's going to be the £1 million question.
Oh, Gabble's went on to hards.
Gabble, wait, no, Gabble's gone on to hards. You can't do that. That's not good by any stretch. But here we go. Lapping earlier, Sprogis, JST, they're all going to overtake Rapassa. So Rapassa is now a net 4th position, as you do have 4 drivers remaining left yet to go into the pits. So Gabor is going to have to jump out in the next lap and get himself onto some yellow walls ASAP.
I mean, that's got to be a glitch, surely, hasn't it? Because there's no way. I'm sure Gabor's already done a couple of races this season. He knows hards aren't allowed. So, yeah, maybe when he was selecting his strategy at the start, he clicked mediums, or maybe he accidentally clicked hard and thought he was on a medium tyre. Very odd indeed. A big shame for Gabor though, because he was on pole. He's now lost any chance, I think, of points, as he's got to go back into the pits once again here on lap 5, making 2 pit stops in 5 laps as Keaton Lutz takes the net race lead ahead of Richard Sprogis in 2nd place. And then, of course, JSD rounding off our podium spots just for now with Luca Rapassa in 4th place. And, of course, our top 4 yet to pit, and I presume they probably will do this lap.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time for them, and they are going to be coming around the penultimate corner now. We should see them come off the stops pretty sharpish, and all of them, bar one, are going to be doing so. Zalan Bieda is going to make a choice to stay out on those initial soft tyre, meaning they are the only driver to do so. And this is going to be a bit of a shift in the order. Caden is going to remain on top right now and is going to be leading Sprogis by a few tenths, along with getting the new fastest lap of the session. Rapassa is still in that net 4th place, and I think biding his time here is going to be ideal. Don't go over aggressive. Let the other spikes in front of you and burn themselves out. That will be the time where you can then sweep forward and get at least one of the positions. But it is a shame to see Gabor effectively being dropped to the very bottom of the order, having made a crucial mistake. And it may have been a glitch as much as it may have been genuine user error, but regardless of the circumstances, you can't be on those hards. You got to get off them.
No, you certainly cannot. As Keanu Latour there getting a penalty, 3 seconds for multiple ones, 2 drivers in 6 laps already with a penalty. So we just show that around here the track limits are difficult to sometimes comply with, as we do see there Richard's going back ahead of Keaton, and JSD also looking to stick his nose around the outside of the Williams, but can't do so on this occasion. Further back there, Exafox jumping up into P16 ahead of Leroy Brown as we head our way into the braking zone for turn 11. And then we do see here Luca Rapassa went for a bit of a dive bomb up the inside of turn 14 ahead of JSD, can't quite get the move done and has to stay back in that net 4 spot for now. But Leo Lund, he's 8 tenths back from Rapassa, from top A and then Rapassa. He'll be looking to catch up onto the back of this train and probably get past Rapassa ASAP, just keep him behind. Because even if it's just one position, he still brings that gap closer.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what I said before. Play the time, play the game. That's going to be Latour heading into the pits and retiring out in the pit lane. Not really sure what the context is behind that, but he is going to be out. He is going to bring in out a local yellow, but otherwise no effect. And the second retiree of the session after Ballant having a incorrect compound at the start of the race, electing not to take the race distance after all. So this is going to be a bit of a sticky spot here as we look back to the top. Luca Rapassa, even with the squabbling, JST, Caden Real Sprogis, Rapassa remains 4th.
Yeah, sorry, top A there, Sappy. He's got damage. It hit the back of Rapassa heading into turn 10.
Not good at all. You can see he's already got a bit of a tough battle ahead with this kind of competition, and now having end plates missing is not doing you any favours.
Certainly he's not, as he does go for
Still
a bit
sends
of a
it.
dive bomb
He
there.
still sends it anyway, because a top A does not care what is physically possible.
No, I don't blame him. I mean, if I've got damage, I might as well try and cause as much chaos as possible. As now Leo Lund looks to make a send on top A, and top A is not living this day, and he knows he's got damage, but he isn't going to let that define his race. As Luca Rapassa does get past JSD, or I think was more defending from him there, and now jumps up into P4 as we head our way through the penultimate corner, back down towards turn 1 very, very shortly to begin lap 8 of 28. Of course, Zalan Bieda leads. Well, I'm sitting here now, and I'm thinking, behind him is his teammate, technically, Keaton Lutz. Is Zalan Bieda's plan to defend and keep everybody behind and let Keaton Lutz shine off into the distance?
Honestly, I think whatever plan Bieda's got, it's out the window now. Those softs are absolutely cooked. Even just 3 laps in, those things, we're talking 20% wear after 3 laps. That's why everyone was so keen to get off them. 7 laps in, those things are going to be absolutely cooked. You are talking any more than 8 laps is a risk of a puncture or delamination, honestly. So it's a big risk, a big game that you are talking and playing with your race effort. So Zalan going for as long as he is on the softs, unless he's got a master stroke of a strategy, trying to one-stop the medium later, is going to be a bit of a race lost for him. If he gets to one-stop the medium, if he does manage to push that hard on it, then fair play to him. But I think it's flying a bit too close to the sun, as we saw with the puncture that took Rapasa out, and out of 25 points potentially in the standings in just the race prior.
Yeah, certainly. It's a bit of a risk as Keaton does make a move past Alan Bader and moves up into P2. And there's Alan trying to fight with Rehard Sprogis here for second place. Rehard says, no, thank you, I'm going up into P2. Rapasa sends it up the inside, goes up into third place. Now JSD's turn to make a pass, and oh, that's going to cause contact. And oh, as Alan Bader was heading into the pitch, JSD was looking to make a move, and they head into contact there, and Alan Bader, well, nearly ended up in the barriers, and luckily for himself, didn't. But Liam Stevens gets a 10-second penalty for corner cutting there as he heads his way into the pit lane.
Yeah, I think that was only going to end in disaster, honestly. Big JST on the inside there. It's hard to say who was in the better position, who should have known better, because, of course, Bieda is going to be still trying to take the optimal line, but he would have seen the car on his inside. So there could have been some avoiding action taken, considering he's the slower traffic in this scenario. Though, can you also argue that JST should have been a bit more aware of the car heading into the pits and reacted a bit more accordingly, rather than digging his heels in?
I think, yeah, a bit of both to blame for that one. As we do see here, Luca Rapasa looking to close in and make a move ahead of Keaton Lutters. Rehard Sprogis takes the lead. We have Diego Zorzo and Leo Lund catching up to the back of Tope, who has a rear lockup. Leo Lund goes up the inside to make the move. Has the outside for turn number 13. Takes it all the way around. And can he get that move covered? I think it's going to be close. He might just get himself ahead, and he does. A brilliant move there by Leo Lund as Diego Zorzo looks to get ahead of Tope as well and move himself up into P5. Has to also go around the outside of the Williams, and into P5 goes Zorzo. And now Leo Lund needs to hope he can keep within a second of our top four, and I think he's just about done it. 9.6 tenths heading up to the DRS line, and now he can hopefully catch back up to Rapasa, and this battle will rage on. Rapasa versus Lund, of course, for the championship title, and they are 8 points separated at the moment here, round 5, and things are going to start heating up as we do see Rehard Sprogis retake that lead.
The top three are squabbling, and this is perfect for Lund. I don't think he's realistically in any danger, because these three are at each other's throats. They show no signs of stopping this battle, and they are going to be really pushing each other to their wits' end. Lut, Rapasa, Sprogis, all in the contention for the race win. They're not going to want to yield, especially Rapasa. He's reeling from a major points loss back in Canada. He's not going to want to give that up so easily. And with that in mind, he's going to be driving even harder than usual. Lund can use that to his advantage to stay in contention and let each other in the top three slow them down.
He certainly can, as here goes Keaton Lutt into the lead ahead. As we do see there, Diego Zorzo making a send on Leo Lund, loses the rear heading through. Into turn 11, sorry, and has to back off for now and stay behind the back of the Lotte Academy car. But Leo Lund has got to be careful here of Zorzo, because he has got some good pace in that Aston Martin, and he has shown on multiple occasions that he is there to take the fight to London, look to make moves, and so will Larry Sulky, of course, finishing second in the Grand Prix in Canada, looking to try and get another podium here around Kota. So we head our way into the final corners, begin lap 11 and 28, and it's going to be Keaton Lutt that leads ahead of Rehard Sprogis and Luca Rapasa, and then of course all those behind looking to just keep in touch with that top three, and I think eventually look to make some moves, but it's going to be hard to get past that top three because their pace is absolutely electric here. And you start to think, what could it have been for Gamel Chantos here if he didn't have that mistake under the hard tyres?
Well, you're always going to think about what could have been. Same goes with the likes of Liam Stevens. He got that 10-second penalty. He ended up quitting out of the race. And you always wonder, would he put up a really good fight in that mid-pack had he stayed on a little bit longer? Would he have been able to fight his way upwards? But you can't dwell too much, as it's tough to keep up with even what's happening on track right now with the remaining 17. We've got a heated battle in the top three. We've got Lund staying within about a quarter to half a second from those top three and keeping himself in that winning fight. You've got the top 8 all in a single train, and then Thomasen and Gottschalk in their own pockets of the circuit. Each 3 seconds on each side of them. These two are basically dueling for their own space on the track. Meanwhile, you do have a few more drivers that are further down, such as Justin Att all the way down to Leroy Brown, and then the last few cars completing the order.
Of course, and it just shows, doesn't it, sometimes, of course, we've had a different format here for this season, and how disjointed it can sometimes make people's races when they're not used to this, you know, different format of racing. We're normally used to seeing hard, medium, hard. The occasional soft tyre will come into use, but yeah, and you can just see, you know, obviously with it being soft to medium, pitting quite early, how much that has messed drivers up and, you know, affected their mentality. And we've got some big gaps here. For example, our top train is only down to P8. In most races in league racing, you see our top train, pretty much everyone, bar maybe a couple of the strugglers at the back. But yeah, it just shows, doesn't it, that it's not easy to get adjusted to that, you know, non-traditional league format, as we do see there. Luca Rapassa very keen, I think, to making a move ahead of Richard Sprogis, but of course Richard has got that battery selected to none, so we can build it up already by using it under that DRS zone.
I don't even think that it's just the format playing in terms of the driving itself. I think that some drivers have to get their significant amount of practice in to unlock that performance. You have some drivers who are very lucky, who are able to jump into a car and adapt and be able to quickly extract the maximum pace, and that's brilliant. But you have some drivers who are on this same pace level, but need a little bit more pre-prep, need a little bit more work to extract that out, some practice laps and a proper warm-up. And you don't get that here in this format. So in a way, it is a test of drivers' adaptability as much as it is their pure skill, because the drivers only learn when you get to qualifying what the track is. There's no practice, there's no prior information. You can't practice for these events, and that can serve to highlight strengths in certain drivers, but also it makes clear the weaknesses in others. We see Top 8 jumping into the pits now. I think he's got a little bit of end plate damage still lingering from that earlier collision, which he is going to have to address and sort out by this point. But we're starting to see potential for some of the medium runners to head in the near future. Remember, the soft tyres have basically got a maximum shelf life of 9 laps at most, which means the mediums are going to be about double that. Question is when they're going to go in to really extract the maximum pace out of those later medium sets.
Of course, you know, a big undercut there for Top 8, of course, but just trying something a bit different. And of course, he's got that damage as well, so we'll drop back a little bit more. So it's pitted early, so we can just, you know, get that pit stop done and just get onto tyres, brand new mediums, and just take them all the way to the end, as we do see there. Of course, Gabor as well, hopping into the pit lane off of his softs and comes out really far back from the leader. He's 42 seconds behind the lead, so he's nowhere near points of contention at the moment, as we do see there. Bit of a move possibly by Richards, and that could open the door for Leo Lund to get ahead of Rapassa. Never mind, Rapassa's going to send it on Richard Sprogis here. The RB versus the Red Bull. We head our way in towards turn 14 now, and Luca Rapassa's going to look to take it the long way round. Bit of contact there between himself and Sprogis as Diego Zorzo gets shuffled out wide by Leo Lund. And let's see if any more moves can be made as Rapassa does get into that second spot, and was certainly under pressure from Leo Lund at one point, but now doesn't have to worry too much. He's got past Sprogis and now can focus on that leading spot.
So on the hunt for the positions. Now that the cards are laid, Leo Lund does have a chance here to really disrupt this top 3 order, and you can already see him trying that as he pokes the nose in, but Sprogis is going to go one further and he's going to send it into the apex to turn 1. Rapassa with a good exit does defend, but Lund and Sprogis both have got their sights set on that front row and on the top of the podiums. So we'll keep an eager eye on these two in particular, with Zorzo waiting in the wings like a vulture to keep any scraps and make the most of the situation. The big question for me here is, as we get into this halfway point of the race, you get into a bit of a game of pit lane chicken. Who's going to be the first to go, and when they do go, how many are going to follow? Because you tend to follow the cadence of the leader for the most part. Overcutting doesn't tend to be that viable unless you really have a specific situation where you can make the most of it. Sprogis is going to make it not 1 but 2, but here comes the switchback from the Williams. It's going to make it 1 back on Rapassa here. 3 wide heading into the next sector here, the final sector 13, and a wobble from Sprogis briefly disrupting the fight, but loot back through on the apex of turn 15 here. quickly jumping back on the throttle. You see a little bit of a squirrely rear end from both cars as they're all racing to get the power down as fast as possible. Leo Lund is going to make his way into the fight as well. Rapazza's been displaced into fourth, and Sprogis along with Lut is going to be in, but Sprogis diving quickly into the pits, deciding, no, this is not my time to fight. JST's also doing the same, and then that leaves Lut, Lund, and Rapazza in your top three.
Indeed, as we do see there, a bit of contact between Lund and Rapazza. Leo Lund hits it late on the brakes and gets damage on the back of Keaton Lut into turn one. And there Diego Zorzo looking to make moves. We're going to go three wide nearly into the S's. And Diego Zorzo is going to look to send a move on Leo Lund. They make contact, they're banging wheels.
He's missing an end plate, he can't hold it.
Through goes Zorzo and Rapazza as well, looking to get past the damaged Leo Lund. And then next after that will be Larry Torquay, of course. Leo Lund getting that damage at turn one. And now has to suffer and probably lose at least a chance of good points here.
I'll be honest, I don't know what Lund's game plan is here. He's got the damage. He's clearly struggling to keep the same apex and the same aero grip as the other cars. So going side by side through that first sector, it's a very dicey move indeed. And you can see he's lost even more elements from that side of the front wing. So he's just making it worse and worse for himself at this point. I think he's getting a little bit too hungry and trying to keep those positions. I think he needs to cool the jets a little bit, reevaluate his priorities, maybe jump in fairly soon if he isn't thinking about it already. So you can see he's clashing physically with Rapazza at this point in a heated effort to keep the attack going. He's losing more and more of that car with every passing sector. Needs to calm it down. He needs to bring that car in.
He certainly does, of course. Just trying something different there. Just trying to keep Rapazza behind, and just hasn't worked in the way he would have wanted, as we do see Lutz, Rapazza and Lund all heading to the pit lane. Diego Zorzo taking the race lead ahead of Larry Torquay in second. Let's see, where does Richard Sprogis come out compared to Luca Rapazza, who of course lost a lot of time battling with Leo Lund as we head our way back down towards turn number one. And I think this has played out nicely here for Richard Sprogis. It certainly has indeed, hasn't it, as the Red Bull goes into turn one ahead of JSD, and then Keaton looks top A. Look where Rapazza's came out. P12, 6 positions behind Richard Sprogis.
That has got to hurt, and the undercut has proven itself not once but twice here in Kota as we get onto lap 16 now. Zorzo is going to remain in the lead, and with quite a margin to Larry Torquay, Exafox being 8 whole seconds away, and it is going to have a chance to make up some good positions, but it's still going to be a hard-fought battle. So the others will have to consider their opportunities very wisely. Sprogis, though, still within that fighting distance. Alan is going to be giving him a hefty helping of DRS heading into turn 12, and that is going to keep their lead going even further here.
It certainly will, as we do see Rapazza there making a move ahead of Top A. Into P11 he goes, and does get ahead of the Williams, of course. Top A got damage earlier on, went into the pits and replaced his front wing, and now sits relatively far down the field here in these races. Rapazza, of course, now looking to close down on Rens Thomason, who's got a 1.6 second gap to our main field ahead. Of course, from now on, they're all looking to go to the end of this Grand Prix. There's a bit of contact as Keaton Lut gets past Zalan Beda, goes up into P8 to try and close back up on to the rear of JSD, who's had a really good race so far here. The TF10 driver in the McLaren as Richard Sprogis takes the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And then, of course, we do see Exafox and Leroy Brown still staying out, and that race just hasn't gone their way at all, has it?
No, but say someone's loss is someone's gain, and we are seeing that come to full fruition here as we look to the top of the field. Exafox and Leroy Brown, last drivers to take their second stop, with the exception of Zalan Bieda with a very late stop into their soft stint to start with. But this is going to be really a stint to the very end. The only wild card I see in all of this, although I think he's overplayed his hand a little bit, is if the likes of Exafox, Leroy and Zalan, if they go on to a final soft stint. I think, like I said, I think it is overplaying their hand, because even compared to the mediums, 5-6 laps in, they're not quite going to have the pace to even warn mediums at that stage. But I do think there is potential there that some drivers might consider.
Yeah, there certainly could be, and you can see here now Rapazza 1.8 seconds to the rear of Keaton Lutton, you start to think, what work has he got to do here to bring that gap back down? It's going to be so difficult for Luca Rapassa to gain enough here to be within a second, as we do see Larry Thorpe now ahead of Zalambida, and also looking to get ahead of Diego Zorzo, one of his FVR compatriots, as we do see our top two heading to the pits. And now Richard Sprogis is our race leader here, ahead of JSD and Keaton Lutz in third, of course. The drivers now don't have to pit again, so this is likely the order we'll similarly see at the end of this race, as Diego Zorzo jumps ahead of Tope. Larry Tolke looking to make a move himself, but does have to sit behind for now as they head their way through the S's section. Lap 18 and 28, 10 to go, and what an interesting ending we could have.
One thing I'm interested in is how Leo Lunge recovers from that bad end to the stint. So he did just get the fastest lap of the race, 32.3, and that does serve him well. However, as if by magic, he is going to get a 3-second time penalty for cutting a little bit too much on the apex through that first sector. So he was making up good time, but that time is going to be all but nullified as the session penalty is going to be placed in effect. Caden Look is going to get the move on JST here as they make their way through. And the top three, regardless of how it plays out, the fact that they've got their own pocket of DRS means that Rapassa is fundamentally at a disadvantage. He's going to have to play the defensive to the likes of Thomasen throughout pretty much the rest of this race here. The best he can hope for is maybe get back in proximity, but it's going to be a hard-fought battle unless these top three really mess each other up in terms of pace.
Indeed, well, I was keeping an eye on Rapassa, and he brings the gap down to about 1.5 seconds. And then on that back straight down to turn 11, he lost a total of 0.6 of a second. You lose so much. We'll see here as well. He will also probably lose a little bit of time. The gap was 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. He just loses way too much in these DRS zones to stop him from gaining into that 1 second gap. He's just got to have a sector where these cars fight, and then he can bring himself in. Once he's in that DRS zone, there's going to be lots of worries for that top three, because Rapassa is probably at the moment the quickest on track, but he just can't, of course, fight with their DRS. There's no way he can, because it's just too powerful.
Yeah, and Rapassa right now is going to really have a tough battle ahead of him. Less than 10 laps of racing to go, and no matter which way he slices it, any time that he's going to gain back, as you said, is going to be lost by the DRS again, especially heading into turn 12 and down the back straight. So he's got to make a judgment call. I don't know if he's going to be able to catch back up, and not without some serious luck in his favour. So Sprogis is going to get the move back on Caden Lute, and is going to reassert himself into the lead of the race. But Rapassa, to get back to him, 1.8 seconds. He's slowly whittling down that time gap. Don't get me wrong. It was better. It is better than it was at one point. However, there is one key factor. He's been burning resources to try and close that gap up. Resources that don't last forever. So he will eventually have to yield, at least for a little bit. And that is going to be another thing pushing him back from catching up to these front three.
Certainly will be, and it's just one of those. It's hard as well, isn't it, for a Rapassa, because it's so annoying, because he's still in P4, but he just feels like he can give so much more. And I mean, if he was at the back, you'd probably think, oh, I'm going to retire here because of that point. But you're in fourth place, it's still a good position, but it's so painful just driving round, knowing that you're going to get within a couple of tenths of what you need, and then it's like, yeah, don't matter, we'll drop back 4 or 5 tenths on the straight. It's going to be so frustrating for Rapassa, but also helpful for the likes of Zorzo and Tolke behind, who will be looking to capitalise off the fact that Luke has got nothing to help him here. And look, you can see Zorzo 80% of battery, Rapassa 15%. Once Diego Zorzo wants to, he can just burn his battery. See you later, Luke Rapassa. I'm off into P4, which looks like what he's going to do now. But this is where they can work together and bring that gap down, because Diego's got DRS. He's pulled ahead of Rapassa. And this time around, the gap's only 1.5, not what it has been previously, as Tolke goes up into P5 ahead of Rapassa, who drops down to P6.
I think these two might be able to shake hands, at least for a few laps, and be able to work together. That might be the saving grace that brings them back up to those top three. Slingshotting off one another in through the DRS sections of the course, it still keeps them in that contention, and we're already seeing that with Diego Zorzo. 1.1 seconds, the shortest we've seen the gap since those front three took off in the early stages of the stint.
Indeed, as the gap just come down to just under at 1.1 seconds. Not enough to go below a second, but there goes Zorzo. He's got a decent run down to turn one. Has only lost a tenth on that whole back straight. Well, it's the front straight, and now he's within a second. Diego Zorzo has got back into that 1 second gap. Of course, slingshotted past Rapasa, and now he's looking to sit on the back of possibly a podium. Those guys ahead have got older tyres than Zorzo, Tolki, and Rapasa, Bart, Keaton, Lutz. So, it's going to be easy. Here's JST, gets a penalty, 3 seconds added to JST's time. But luckily for him, he'll probably only drop down to P6 here as his penalties and gaps behind Rapasa.
Yeah, it will most likely be P6 if that, as the penalties will stack against him, of course, in this primary battle. But with the gap that they've pulled out to top A, 4 seconds away, it does mean he's got a little bit of breathing room and a bit of damage control that he now has to do with the other drivers if he wants to maximize his opportunities. This might diminish some of the fight he has left in him, and that might be crucial for the likes of Zorzo, who now is within half a second and well and truly caught up with this queue.
Indeed, as we do see, further behind as well, Renz Thomason is also bringing his gap to Rapasa down as well. So, you know, the gaps are starting to close, but there's only 7 laps to go here, and we're going on to lap 22 of 28. And Richard Sprogis has the lead ahead of Keaton Lutz, and then JSD with a penalty in third, which means at the moment it's Diego Zorzo who's technically on that third spot. We head our way to turn 1. Lutz takes the lead of the race ahead of Sprogis. And that's all these two are going to do now for the rest of the race, just keep swapping and changing. But then when you get towards that 27, that's when these two want to solidify themselves into second spot. So they'll be playing games. That 28 is when they'll all be going, you know, head to leather for this top spot. So it's going to be interesting between our top 3, top 2, what happens. But there's no reason why 3rd to 6th also can't get involved.
This is one of the few tracks I'd actually argue that it's better to be in first than it is to be at second at the start of the lap. Just think about it for a second. You've got the DRS straight heading into turn 1. You get overtaken by your opponent. They hold the sector, and then you take them back with no counter out in turn 11 to 12. Like we're seeing right here with Sprogis. As soon as Luck makes a counter, he's right there to get it into turn 12 and just reassert himself back into P1. I think that is going to be the back straight that they're preparing themselves for. They don't want to be second at the start of the lap, but they want to be in second place at the detection zone, just coming out of turn 10 at the end of the first sector.
Hassler, I think, coming into contact with JSD, and JSD's got damage. Now, I don't remember him having that earlier, so I don't know if that was caused just between himself and Luca, or if it just was damage he had earlier on and it's just gone a little bit unnoticed until now. But of course it was his teammate, Joel Marquardt, who also got damage in this race earlier on and got really screwed over. Dropped down all the way to P16, as we do see, moves into turn 1. So also has jumped to the 3rd ahead of Tolki. Rapasa as well, looking to close in and also get back up into that top 3. Of course, Leo Lund in a position to actually score no points. No, P10 it will be for Leo Lund here. So 1 point for him, and Rapasa's in P5, 10 points, which means the gap will increase by 9, bringing it at the moment to 17 points. But as soon as Rapasa starts making moves, that gap just goes up even more. From 17 to 19 to 22, and then of course at the front it'd be like 25.
Yeah, you got your commentator napkin maps live on show here, folks. With 5 laps to go, he's bringing out the maths paper. He's really been studying for this one. But it is interesting to think about how this is going to leave the standings stacking up. As we head into the final sector, though, Sprogis and Zorzo go side by side. The Aston Martin has been biding his time, heading through the last couple of laps, and now it's time to light the fuse and get this fight underway, get this match lit, and get this fight into fruition. Zorzo is 2.5 tenths behind the Red Bull, piloted by the R8G driver. You see in the background, you see Rapasa and Tolki, rivals in potential for the rest of this championship. Say Tolki, like we were saying earlier, has that pace but has snuck under the radar a little bit. and really does have the fight, as we saw with Lund and himself last time out. Now sitting in P5 and potentially challenging on current championship leader Luca Rapace, as Caden Lute is giving him a bit of a thorn in his side of his own. Wobbling and struggling to get the power down. The recharge lights are on, and the pressure is amping up as the final 5 climactic laps are taking place, and the field is condensing at this top 5 at an alarming rate.
It certainly is, and I've got to say, I do feel for Richard Sprogis, because behind him are 2 FVR cars. If Tolkien gets ahead of Rapace, then it will be 3, and they can all work together to get past the RHG development driver of Richard Sprogis. As we head our way back then to turn 11 once again. Richard is in the lead. Do see Diego there. Will he look to make a move? He's gaining in. Is it enough to go into first place? It will be. Lut as well, looking to go around the outside. Does tap the rear of the Red Bull of Sprogis, but does stay in third for now. Torquay as well, looking to go around the outside of Rapace here in towards 13, 14 and 15. Has the inside line here into the braking zone, but of course Lut there, being in the way. Does block off Torquay, but Torquay's still going to drag it side by side with Luca Rapace here. Into the triple right-handers. Torquay does have to pull it out a little bit wide to give the space to the RB, and stays in P5. He's keen on making that move, but also isn't willing to take enough risks to ruin his race.
He's trying to dance that fine line of putting the pressure on harder and harder against Rapace, but not quite enough to really scare him here. He goes right to the inside of the track, squeezed there in part by Rapace's move, forcing him to take the inner line. And a little bit of a wobble, goes into contact with Torquay, having to take evasive action heading into 5th place. So very much push coming to shove with the RB and the Haas car respectively. 4th and 5th looking like just as contentious positions as 1st and 2nd, with Zorzo now pulling out about 7/10 of a second relative to Sprogis in distance. It's going to be a bit of a questionable one, bit of a strange one, if we do see Zorzo pull out that second gap. I don't think it's going to happen, though, as we do come up to the DRS zone. We do see the Red Bull now working to close the gap. He's not going to get round on this corner, but it's enough to bring him within striking distance once again.
Indeed, as we do see there, Torquay looking to get back ahead of Rapace, made a massive lunge in towards turn 11, but just couldn't quite get the move done ahead of the Veloci Academy driver. But of course you can see Larry is very keen now on getting ahead of Luca Rapace, but he just can't find that move, and that's the worst part, because he's got the pace. He just can't put himself alongside at any point, and that's what's really harming him here in getting a podium possibility. As we do, of course, get ready now to go into lap 26 of 28. And Diego Zorzo still leads ahead of Richard Sprogis. Of course, 2 lap better tyres for Diego, and you're seeing how much it's helping, because his pace, when we're not in DRS, is very, very good here compared to Sprogis and co. As we did see there, Daniel Gottschalk taking a penalty.
Yeah, we are going to see him take a bit of a hit here, as that will just bring him further and further down. Now, for some reason my timing tower doesn't want to respond, otherwise I get the tyre lives up right now. So we will have to play that by ear a little bit. What I can say is that Zorzo has got 2 lap younger mediums compared to Sprogis, who has got 11 laps on his mediums here. Lut and Rapace both have 10 laps, with Tulki in the 5th place spot. Also 9 laps on the yellow walls. So that pace could come to influence things, but here comes Sprogis now, having closed the gap much more, and is going to make a definitive overtake, but not to be outdone. Here comes Caden Lute. He's going to switch it back on not 1 but potentially 2 here. Sprogis is going to hold on the inside line here, coming out into the 3rd sector. Lute on the left side, holding the apex as best as he can. Zorzo's just trying to find a space in all of this, as he himself is getting boxed in by Luca Rapace. He's having to dip back into 4th, but the fight is still raging on all the way through Sector 3. This isn't even the last lap yet, but we're seeing those kind of attitudes really start to turn up the wick as we head now into the penultimate lap of the race.
We certainly are. Our top 5, well, our top 6, but of course Jesse's got a penalty, are all within a couple of tenths of each other. DRS, ERS is all being burnt down to turn 1 here on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. We do see Richard Sprogis sending it here onto Keaton. Look, bit of contact. Through goes Larry Torquay on 1 and on 2. A brilliant move there by the Haas. but can he get that second move secured as Diego Zorzo is going to push him all the way through the S's section? Zorzo goes off the circuit, Torquay goes back up into third, but Diego hangs it around the outside. Slight bit of contact between the Aston Martin and the Haas. And for now, Zorzo still holds on to that third place, but has brought that gap up quite a lot as Gabor Tiantos retires in the pit lane.
There you go. That is going to be a final swan song for Zontos and his race effort here. Of course, the early mistake didn't play into his hands well, and I think the rest of the race has just sort of served to reinforce that. Unfortunate, he's going to be our 4th retiree out in this session, so calling a local yellow in Sector 1, but that's not going to affect anything as we do head into the final sector now, and it's crunch time. This has got a lot more complex. Previously, we were talking about just a 2-car battle. But realistically now, we are talking 4, potentially 5 cars who are all looking to throw their weight around and get in the mix.
They certainly are, as we do see here. Of course, Kid and Luck leading the way. Rihard Sprogis is the closest to bite and jump up into first, but with that overspeed. Diego Zorzo. Larry Torquay as Diego makes a massive send, collects Larry Torquay and Rapasa in the process. And a bit of a commentator's curse there from Sappi. The battle goes from 5 down to 2.
As if willed by magic. Of course, that's not how you want it to go. But just a little bit too much on the inside. It pitted the other cars and effectively just created a snow shovel. It just created a shovel that collected the other cars. So now, these two are firmly going to get away. Rapasa even having to take evasive maneuvers and action to avoid utter carnage. But here goes the top 2. There's a wobble from Caden Luke heading at the end of the first sector. He's going to drop some big time here, but this is his chance. He's got the detection zone heading into the sector and into the back straight now. He's going to have to really prime his attack, give it absolutely everything. You can see Sprogis already going on to the defensive. He knows what Luke is going to try and play here. He's going to play his hand. He's going to sweep to the inside. Luke's going to fire his way through. Is Sprogis going to have a counter? He's not going to have it. It's just too much. But great switchback, actually. A little bit too deep there for the Williams. And all the way through. It's going to be a tense battle right to the edge. Too much on the rear end, though. But Sprogis, he has to dip back behind. Can he switch this one back? He's going to go for it again. Second verse. Not quite the first. As Luke, even with a wiggle under throttle and a wiggle under pressure, is going to keep Sprogis behind him. Now, final couple of corners. Sprogis, he's aiming for it. He's pitching for it. He can't quite do it. Final corner as they make their way through now. Caden Luke is going to be your winner here in Texas, with Sprogis in a close second and Rapasa completing your podium in chaotic fashion.
What an ending there. A brilliant race here tonight. And Leo Lund, there we are, out of the points. And, oh, has he pinned it before the line? I'm not quite sure there. But he will finish in P11. A big shame there for Leo Lund too. Was at one point on for P9 because of the penalties, so I don't know what's happened at the back, but he's dropped outside the points. Big gains in the championship here for Luca Rapasa. 15 points he can extend onto that 8 to make it 20. No. I don't know. Is it? No? 23 points, I think.
I think you've done enough maths for one night, Nathan. I can see the steam. I can see the steam pouring out of your ears on camera. But regardless, it's a great day for some, as particularly in terms of the championship, this is going to shake things up in a big way. Of course, Rapasa is going to come out stronger from this with one of his main opponents, the main protagonist in the order, now being shoved down a peg and out of some much needed points. 15 is going to be added to his board and into his pocket, although other contenders might have something to say. Caden Luke is going to be your winner, however, and in strong fashion is going to easily be taking a couple of points home for himself and is going to really be pushing himself into the fight for the top spots of the championship. That 25 is going to slingshot him into third and well within striking distance of some of the others at the top. So watch this space. Sprogis is going to complete, along with Rapasa, your podium, and then you have Torquay, Zorzo, Thomasen, Tope, Leroy Brown, Exafox making a great recovery, and then Ryan Grob completing your top 10. Following that, just outside of the points, it is going to be Leo Lund. We'll have to see exactly what happened there with Justin Ertz, Daniel Gottschalk, Zalan Bieda, JST, and then Joel Marquardt with Zontos, Stevens, Leto, and Alekis. Unfortunately, not quite making it to the end. So Gabor retiring in the last couple of laps, and then the others coming out much earlier due to a mix of car issues, penalties, and or tyre mischoices.
Well, there we have it. A brilliant race here tonight, and we do have Luca Rapassa in the waiting room, so we'll drag him in for a quick chat. Luca, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So, brilliant race. A bit of an interesting one, though. Of course, at one point you're up in the lead, then you're down to P5, and you're scrambling to try and get back onto that podium. But of course, heading on to the last lap, he was in P5. And do you think that podium would have been possible without the damage without the contact between Larry and Diego?
No, it's definitely not being possible. I was maybe a bit too high wings, and I guess I got lucky with what happened. I don't even know what happened. I just saw Zorzo half spinning, and then I just luckily could sneak through without any damage or anything. So I guess that was quite decent.
Yes, indeed. Of course, P3 in the end. Of course, bringing that gap up to over 20 points now between yourself and Leo Lund after Leo got P11, didn't score any points. So I suppose that helps give you a bit of a buffer, doesn't it, now, heading into the remaining rounds, knowing that Leo Lund's got to do that extra more to try and take that championship lead away from you.
Yeah, I guess I'll just have to make the most of it in the remaining races, and then yeah, I'll just try to do everything I can before, of course, missing the last 2 races.
Yes, indeed. Well, anyway, congratulations on the podium. Anything from you, Sappy?
Nothing from me. So you've addressed the main points that I would have said. Just a great job, and particularly in adapting to the circumstances around you. One thing I do want to ask is what was going through your mind in those last couple of laps? Obviously, you had the big incident towards the end that really sort of shook up the order and brought you to the fore. But what was going through your mind in those moments?
I was surprised mostly, but I didn't mind. Of course, it gave me 2 positions. I reckon if maybe I got a bit closer to like the leading into the lead train after like the last pit stop, I could have maybe won the race. But I was out of the DRS because of a bit of fighting before, and then I had to burn my tires up, and then of course I got overtaken by Larry and Zorza, which made my overtaking possibilities less because they were on better tires.
Well, either way, you managed the situation well, and in the end, so through a mix of sort of determination and some circumstances as well, sort of helping out a little bit. In the end, it's a podium, and it's some good points that will help you forward from potentially the championship.
Hopefully.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
Next we have Richard Sprogis. So Richard's welcome in, of course. A very nice race. Finally a bit of luck going your way. P2 in the end. How did that race go for yourself?
I enjoyed it a lot. I was just working together with the top guys. Was just chilling, nothing going for risks or anything. But yeah, really happy about the race. Finally, nothing stupid happened, and can be happy to go sleep.
Definitely a well-deserved rest, of course. After qualifying P2, what was you hoping that you could get back on the podium, or did you expect a little bit of unluckiness in the race?
I knew that I had to stay at the front because all the chaos is in middle field and the back. So if I just stayed at the front, I knew that everything will be fine. But yeah, some people died. I saw behind me, so I was a bit lucky today. So yeah, really happy.
And I suppose once you saw those cars behind you, the bottom, the third, fourth, and fifth, all have their contact. I suppose that gave you a little bit more comfort, didn't it, going on to that final lap, and a bit more, well, not really relaxing, but at least you didn't have to worry about those behind.
Of course, yeah, but yeah, we'll see what Kedon did. We'll have a look if that's penalizable or not. But yeah, it was an interesting move by him. So we'll see, because engineer told me that I deserve the P1, so I will try my best to get the P1. And let's hope the stewards will come to my way.
Indeed, you've got to wait and see. But congratulations on second place. Anything from you, Sappy?
I do have one thing, which is looking at a bit of a wider scope. So relative to your season performance, so we've had 3 non-points, one of them being a DNF, and then a couple of points being picked up in Canada. This is your first big break in terms of the championship, in terms of scoring. So my question to you is, do you see this as the start of some momentum, potentially moving your way up the standings? Because this does put you close to, if not at the edge of, the top 10.
Yeah, of course, it's always the goal to just try and finish as high as possible and not to give up, because I know that I have the pace. I just need to get everything together, and for sure the results will come. So I think the championship is done and dusted, but yeah, still can finish top 5 at least. That's the goal, and maybe even higher. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, looking forward to it. And sort of last question before we hand it off is, if you had to pin down today's performance to one thing, that could be circumstances on track, that could be just on track pace, good strategy, whatever else. If you had to pin down your performance to one key aspect that got you this P2, what would it be?
I think it was maybe after the. Let me think.
Bit of a tough question, like... forgive me.
Yeah. I think it was like when the overcut guys caught up to the DRS, and I had to try and still be ahead. I think that was the hardest race point. But yeah, I think that's it. When the people try to overtake, and yeah, when I saw the fight with Luca, I think it's Lari and Diego. I think those are the guys who put the most pressure to me. So I think that was the most crucial point.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's good to hear your perspective, mate. And, of course, best of luck in the rest of the championship. We're at the halfway point now, but we'll hopefully see you in here a bit more often.
Hopefully. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you go.
There we go. Brilliant race, wasn't it? Really enjoyed that one, of course. Nail-biting all the way to the end, and obviously, Kidden not taking the victory in the end. Unfortunately, didn't pop in for a chat with us today, but I'm sure he will do once he's back on if he gets back on the podium for the remainder of the season. But of course, that championship battle between Leo Lund and does start to bear a bit more thin, and it was rare today to not really speak about Leo Lund at all. It was like he wasn't racing. We never saw him at all, did we? Yeah,
I mean, we saw the flash of brilliance over in Baku and in Canada, but now we're sort of seeing him fall away a little bit. And unfortunately, I think this sort of speaks a little bit to some of his other performances in the season so far. Now, I know we're only at the halfway point. It is only early days, but if you break down the results a little bit, you can see 2 P1s, brilliant. Great stuff, but he's also got a 6th and a 9th. So I think the consistency is his main factor here, because he's got the pace. And on his day, like we've seen, again, Baku, Canada, on his day, he is an absolute on-track weapon. There is no disputing that. It's just a case of, are you catching him on his day or not? Is luck going to be on his side? I think today here, if he hadn't have fought as hard towards the end of that stint and lost half his wing, and if he had kept it in a bit more of the lines, I think we'd be singing a very different tune. I think he really would be much closer to this fight, or at least in a position where he would have got some points today. But as it currently stands, he's going to be dropping out in a big way, and he's going to be making way for the likes of Caden Lute. Those 25 points, they are going to be putting him just 6 points behind Lund in this championship, and that's going to be a big deal.
It certainly will be a really exciting, of course, remaining 5 rounds of the championship. I mean, I don't know if I'll be back before the end. I hope I will, because I've really enjoyed the twice I've been this season. A really good race, but yeah, there's nothing left for me to say apart from a big thank you to everyone watching along tonight. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone in the live chat. Of course, thank you to the drivers who make this happen, and to the team back home at WOR. But that's where it's going to be for us tonight. Next round, we head to... nearly got you there. We'll see what happens, but we are going to be taking a week's break. So it won't be next week, but it'll be the end of March. So the final Monday of March, you'll be seeing us for round 6, and then we head into the final 4. It's a straight shot, quadruple header, quintuple header, if you count the March round at the end of the month. But this is going to be a tightly packaged season and the final season in F1 24. So let's make it count. Let's make it a good one. But from both of us here in the commentary box and from all the drivers, wish you a good evening and have a good night, everyone. Thank you for watching and goodbye.